Good morning, everyone. We'll begin in just a second. Representative Harden, will you open us with a prayer, please?
I would pray. Our Father in heaven, we thank you this morning for this time that we have together to consider the business of the people of the state of Georgia. Father, we thank you for your many blessings toward us, and we pray, Father, that you would be with us, guide us as we deliberate on these matters, that we would do those things that would be pleasing in your sight. Father, these things we pray in your name and in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of announcements. Some of your committee members will be leaving for meetings at 9 o'clock, so go ahead and remind you that the latest information, we do our best to get it out to you via email and getting it to your offices, but we also post outside our office. And, of course, if you have any questions, office staff is always available to you. There's a 5-minute rule before and after the committee, just to give our committee members a chance to sit down, get settled, and then a chance to run out if they're trying to make their next meeting. Also, just remember to turn off any electronic devices. And at that point in time, I'm going to take now my reports from my committees. Representative Riley, will you give me your report on environmental quality?
Thank you.
Here, it's coming to you right now.
23.
Oh, 23. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Your subcommittee on environmental quality met on February 12, 2013 and heard House Bill 177. Representative Geisinger made a do-pass motion. It was seconded by Chairman Brooks Coleman. The subcommittee voted unanimously on this motion.
Thank you. And then we'll also have a report from our subcommittee resource management.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The subcommittee on 21. Subcommittee on Resource Management met on February 12th and considered House Bill 226 from Chairman Randy Nix, and had a favorable discussion of the bill. However, a parliamentary procedure issue needs to be resolved. We will do that at the next meeting and make our favorable report at that time.
Thank you. This means that we can hear House Bill 177, and we have our bill presenters here. So, Chairman Wilkinson, are you presenting? Yes, ma'am. Okay. And okay. Thank you. Just come forward, and we got your mic on.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and fellow members of the committee. This is House Bill 177. We're working off LC 400249. It's in your folder. First of all, this is the Oconee River Greenway Authority, and we're taking it from 2 to 4 residents for each county. And you're probably wondering why the guy who represents Sandy Springs and Buckhead is presenting this on behalf of the Oconee River Greenway Authority. But if you'll note, the president of Georgia Military College is a member, and this property backs up to the campus. I have a 35-year relationship with the school. One of my sons graduated from GMC, and I am very close to the school. We're recruiting a new president who will go on this board, and this will allow the outgoing president to remain on the board. It's been something we think is good. It brings about more citizen involvement, and you'll notice the co-sponsors are Representative Kidd and Representative Epps.
Thank you for your presentation to the committee. Are there any questions? I'll entertain a motion at this time. Number 22. All right.
I move, Madam Chair, that it do pass.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Thank you. You have a due pass. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And now, since it's still early in the session, we're going to continue with our primers, for lack of a better word, on what the different agencies do that we usually consider bills from. So we have Director Clark. If he will come forward, we will go ahead and begin with that presentation. This is a agency that does a whole lot, and we see the results of it a lot of times, but we're not quite sure of all the different responsibilities they have, because we've added to it as we've gone along as a body. So that's part of what we're going to do is learn exactly what GIFA does, and certainly appreciate your time, Director Clark. Thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's always great to come up before you guys and give you an overview of what GIFA does. First, I'd like to introduce a couple of members of my staff who are here. They say they come here to support me, but I think they just like to watch me mumble and stumble. But anyway, have Shane Hicks, who's our Public Affairs Director, and Chris Jones, who's our CFO. So wanted to introduce those folks to you. You may see them running around the halls on occasion. GIFA has three areas of responsibility. We deal with energy resources, land conservation, and water resources. And if you'll bear with me, I'll spend a few moments going over each one of these areas in this sequence. Here we have what we call our activity map that shows how GIFA impacts and touches every county in the state through our various programs. It's really kind of busy, but I just wanted to let you guys see that we do have a profound effect all throughout the state with our various programs, be it energy, land, or water. In our Energy Resources Division, or group, we focus on three primary areas: energy efficiency, renewable energy, and energy assurance. Under energy efficiency, we look at the state energy program. That's where that's a federally funded program wherein we have some financial incentive programs. Those have dried up over the years, and we provide technical support and assistance to various entities, whether it's state, local, or even industrial, commercial. The Weatherization Assistance Program is another federally funded program. In conjunction, we do get some money from Georgia Power. And this is a low-income weatherization program wherein we go in and weatherize and essentially make energy efficient low-income homes, homes that have disabled or elderly, and homes that have high energy usage. And this program really does help reduce energy consumption throughout the state, especially for those who need it the most. So we provide these services through the community action agencies throughout the state, and we'll talk about a little bit the effects that the ARRA had on this program and how that's winding down. I'll show that to you near the end of the presentation, but this is one area where energy efficiency is captured through our energy division. The state utilities program is another area that we house in our energy resources group, and one of the things that we do is we procure energy services, primarily gas, for the state agencies and working through the Department of Administrative Services, and we also advise agencies on other utility costs, be it electricity, water, etc., on how to reduce those, how to capture the best rates, etc. We also provide some technical assistance to K through 12, helping them manage their energy costs and try to reduce their energy consumption. And we do some utility bill tracking for agencies so that they can see whatever, find whatever kind of, use that they can manage. And then we also have a relatively new tool. It's called Energy Performance Contracting. You may recall a couple of years ago, a constitutional amendment passed that allowed state agencies to basically incur debt for the purposes of these types of projects. And these are really energy efficiency projects. And the concept is that through your energy savings that an agency would have, that would help pay for or fund the cost of these projects. And the companies that perform this work essentially guarantee that you'll receive those energy savings. So it's really a financial mechanism wherein agencies can perform energy efficiency contracts and energy efficiency work within their facilities. Just another, if you will, I like to call another credit card in the wallet. But it's a methodology wherein agencies are able to utilize this and reduce their energy consumption over a period of time. Another thing we have is the Georgia Energy Challenge. And you may recall several years ago, the state made set the goal of reducing our consumption by 15% by 2020. And one of the tools that we use is the Georgia Energy Challenge. The Georgia Energy Challenge really is a pledge by residential, commercial, industrial users that they will do what they can to reduce their consumption and match the state by the 15%. Within this, we have some tools that we use and make available to folks such that they can go on the website, enter in their data, and we will crunch out. And EMCs and Georgia Power and others have very similar programs, but we can help folks figure out what they can do to reduce their costs and their consumption. So we developed this program, they put in their data, and then out comes a list of short-term and long-term activities that homeowners, businesses, commercial enterprises can take to reduce their consumption. Another area that we assist the Department of Revenue in is the Clean Energy Property Tax Credit. And this is a program that actually I think expires right now in 2014. It has about a $5 million a year cap. We currently have a backlog of applications. I think it's a 35% subsidy in their taxes for renewable energy that's installed. But we have a backlog of applications now that'll get us through 2014. But nonetheless, we review those applications, determine whether the project is a renewable energy project that qualifies for this credit, and then pass that information on to the Department of Revenue, and then annually we produce a report in conjunction with the Department of Revenue about the property tax credit. One of the things we are involved in, and you guys see this every October or so, is the sales tax holiday for WaterSense and Energy Star products. That helps conserve energy. It's for those, whether it's air conditioners, anything that's Energy Star related or certified, the $1,500 or less open to residential consumers, and then same with the WaterSense products, $1,500 or less get a sales tax holiday on those products. And you guys have seen that going on the last few years. The last area for us in energy that I would like to spend a brief moment on is energy assurance. GEFA is the lead agency for Emergency Support Function 12, which is the energy group. And so we work with GEMA, and anytime there's an event, we go to the operations center and work with making sure that there is a supply of energy, primarily fuel. You may recall back in 07 and 08 during the hurricane season, we had some shortages there, and we were involved in making sure and determining what we could do to make sure we had adequate supplies of fuel. We also produced this year the Energy Assurance Plan in conjunction with GEMA, and that plan basically lays out some of the framework of what would happen during various scenarios and disasters. And as part of that, we in GEMA developed what we call GO-DOGS. It's a geospatial awareness system that really has multiple layers of GIS information of all the energy providers, whether it's the EMCs, whether it's pipelines, regardless of the type, such that we have one place where we can go and see what area is impacted and what utilities are there and who we can contact. And it's just a really great tool to look at and get your bearings when we have a disaster and what we need to do. So we developed that as part of stimulus. That's in play now. GEMA's the keeper of that, but really comes in handy for those guys. And we also participate in any of the exercises that they have relative to training or any kind of disaster awareness. Briefly, I want to touch on our land resources program. We deal with land conservation and fuel storage tank management for the state. GEFA is the home for the land conservation program, and through that primarily we have the ability to provide financing or loans to counties, cities, and certain non-governmental entities, conservation-based entities, to either purchase in fee or easement and permanently protect certain valuable conservation tracts of property. Fuel storage management. we are charged with managing the state of Georgia's, all the state agencies' fuel tanks, both above ground and underground. So any leaks that they have, again, excuse me, any leaks that exist or occur, we fix those. We go in and monitor and track the usage of fuel, make sure that all the operators have their proper certifications and their training, all the tanks pass their inspections. So we manage that for the various state agencies throughout all of Georgia. And now I want to spend a little bit of time on our water resources. I think that's where we do most of our bread and butter work. So I want to touch on that briefly. We basically provide financing for water, sewer, and solid waste. And we have several programs with which we do that in. We have 4 basic programs. We have the Drinking Water SRF, the Clean Water SRF, the Georgia Fund, and the Reservoir and Water Supply Fund. The first 2, the SRFs, which stands for State Revolving Fund, are federally funded. And then the Georgia Fund is the state-funded program. And the Reservoir and Water Supply Fund is, again, a state-funded program. We set our rates, our interest rates, based off of the 20-year rate that GSFIC receives when they have a bond sale. So our rate changes every time there's a bond sale. The last sale that GSFIC had in December, that rate was 2.4%. So for our Georgia Fund, we set that rate at 2.4%, and I'll go over some of the reductions we have to that rate. In the federal program, we offer the rate at 100 basis points less than Georgia Fund because the federal program usually has more hoops, more hurdles, a little more work that one has to do in order to get that, to achieve that and be eligible for those loans. So we reduce that to help keep that program on par and go from there. On the Reservoir and Water Supply Fund, excuse me, we utilize very flexible rates, and again, I'm going to show you some of that and how that works pragmatically. But we do that. We use different varying rates on that program. That one we have a great deal of flexibility on, so we utilize that. Under the Reservoir program, too, we have planning loans. We don't have that in any of the other programs. Because the nature of water supply, and primarily reservoirs, are so long-term, we thought it would be best if we could offer communities a planning type loan such that they could go out, see, do their analysis, do all of their due diligence, see what's necessary, and then decide whether they're going to go forward with the project. So those are our 4 programs. Drinking water, I think, speaks for itself. Clean water is a fancy way to say sewer work. And then, of course, Georgia Fund and Reservoir Supply and Water Supply. As you guys know, the state of Georgia has undertaken a multifaceted approach to water management. We believe that we should be a conservation-based state and have a conservation-based philosophy relative to water. We also need to maximize our supply, our ability to supply water. It's a 2-pronged approach. And so we use wells, we use water loss abatement, conservation measures, efficiency, reservoirs, redundancy, interconnections, all of those things to maximize and manage Georgia's water. And dealing with conservation, as you guys know, several years ago, legislature passed SB 370, which really was one of the most comprehensive conservation acts throughout the country from a water standpoint. And we fully support that, and I think that helped create this culture of conservation that we're seeing within the state. And in order to promote that, we have an interest rate reduction for conservation projects of 100 basis points. So even in the federal program, if one were to have a conservation-based project in the federal programs, currently would have an interest rate of 0.4%. That's pretty good, and that helps, I think, promote some of these conservation projects. The other thing that we're doing relative to conservation, and it's really part of the whole water planning process, I'm sure you guys have heard from Director Turner, but The water systems throughout the state are to have their final audits completed by March 1st, the small systems. And we have worked the past year with the small systems, and that's defined as systems that have 3,300 to 10,000 customers. We have been working with those communities and providers to help them over the last year develop their audits. We've hired some engineers to go out and assist those communities. That universe of communities or providers is 114, and over 100 have taken advantage of our service to help them get their audits complete. And I think most of those, if not all those communities, will be ready to submit those March 1st. The next phase of our water loss project will be to take those communities, those small services, and figure out which ones have the most loss, and then we're going to try to provide contractors to help them address that, whether it's detection, whether it's leak repair, whether it's meter calibration, any types of things that we can do to help these smaller communities who have a great deal of loss. We have some abilities through our funding to help them fix some of those things. So we're going to evaluate that, and hopefully this summer put that into play where we'll be able to work with some of these smaller systems and repair some of these problems. Want to spend a few minutes talking about the reservoir and water supply. That's one of the latest programs we've been working on. Before you is a list of the loans we made last year. Totaled $98 million for water supply projects, and you can see that there's a great, I guess, diversity in the types of projects that we had. We had some planning loans, we had some new reservoirs, we had an enhancing an existing reservoir project, and a couple of wells. So we were trying to make sure that we had a good spread of the types of projects that we were dealing with. And I'm going to go over some of the terms and show you how that worked. But that was, we awarded that last year, and, presuming favorable passage of the governor's request in his budget for funding for that program, we'll do the same this year. We'll award $40 million. When we met with local governments and went through the process of developing the water supply program, the local governments really requested three things. They wanted us to have flexibility to provide financing that met a specific project's needs, not a cookie cutter one size fits all. They wanted us to reduce the upfront costs because of generally speaking, the long length that these projects of time that these projects take. They wanted to see what we could do to lower the annual debt service. So as we went through the process of evaluating the needs of the applicants and what we could do, we came up with some really, I think, really good flexible programs. The graph before you is what I call a typical GFA loan, and this would be your typical type construction loan or anything else. You have your construction interest for the first 3 years, your closing fee, and then your debt service, which is level for 20 years. Now, this presumes just a standard 20-year loan, about $1 million. But that, you can see, is pretty standard fare. Of course, the blue bars are principal, the gray is interest. But that's pretty much a standard loan, level debt service all the way through for 20 years. For Vienna, we had a little bit different loan. We had no interest for 3 years, and then a 30-year AM. And as you can see, and it was a 1% loan. So as you can see, under the normal GFA loan, their total debt service would have been $1.5 million. Since we reduced their interest rate, it turned out to be $1.2 million. And their annual debt service payments were reduced by about $10,000. So, and you can see the effect, if you think back about the other loan, the ratio of principal and interest and how reduced that interest is on this one. Again, level debt service, but reduced interest. Cornelia is a reservoir enhancement project. Again, no interest for 3 years, and then a 30-year AM, and again, reduced 1.5% interest rate on that. So we eliminated their upfront costs as best we could, and deferred the interest while they went through that project. That's about a $7 million project. But you can see the effect: lower debt service and lower annual debt service payments. This is Hard Labor Creek. This is one that has some very complex, I wouldn't call them overly complex, but it had some complex terms. I'll have to review them. I don't have them committed to memory, but I wanted to let you know what those were. It was a $12 million loan, 0% for 3 years. Then it escalated to 1%, interest only for years 0 through 5, and then 2% for 40 years. So as you can see through there, you can see the very staggered, no payments, interest only, reduced interest, and then a 40-year AM. As you can tell by that long period, of course, their total debt service is greater. It's $18 million, but it's extended out for 40 years. But their debt service, annual debt service payments, once they start making those, would be reduced. So again, working with the communities, trying to figure out how can we get them the funding that they need that will allow us to still have some sustainable, at some point, some sustainable return of revenue so we can keep the program going, but allow them to build their projects. And I wanted to close a little bit with just talking about, you guys have heard a lot about the federal funding snafus and what's going on in D.C. and what the effects are on GFA and these programs. As I said, the SRFs are federally funded programs, both the drinking water and clean water, and are funded by the Environmental Protection Agency. And then DOE, Department of Energy, funds our energy programs, SEP, State Energy Program, and weatherization. So if sequestration goes into play, we're looking at something a little bit less than 8% reduction. Again, not a overly onerous amount for us, and we have actually anticipated that in our planning for the last year or so. But I wanted to show you kind of the effects of what's happened over the last 5 or 6 years. As you can see from our FY05 through really 8, had a pretty consistent level of funding for the SRFs. And then stimulus hit, it got jacked up about $180 million. Then it started going down, gradually working its way down. So if sequestration happens to go into play, or there is some reduction, we anticipate that we would be back at the levels of before 2009, somewhere in that time frame. So not a great deal of difference for us. We have plenty of capacity in the federal program, so if it happens, we're fine. We can continue to make loans, and I meant to mention earlier, currently our capacity through all three of our programs that have capacity, the reservoir fund's exhausted, but our other programs, we have over $300 million in capacity to loan. So we're fine from a capacity standpoint. Most of that is on the federal side. I wanted to show you kind of if that has an effect, and then the effect that stimulus had on us back in '09. And this is really much more dramatic for the energy programs. As you can see, from an energy standpoint, never had a great deal of funding there, usually less than $1 million. And it went through. When stimulus hit, Energy Division took a great deal of money and plowed that back into the economy. The biggest one was weatherization. As you can see, for the years prior, small dollars, $1 million or so every year. And then for 3 years, it was about $45 million a year. And now it's dropping back off pretty precipitously. But so even if sequestration didn't occur, we would still be reduced back to probably 2009 levels. If it happens, we'll have a 7.9% reduction. Again, we'll manage through it. We've been planning on it. But I just wanted to show you graphically where we're at and the effects that the ERA had and what would happen from a sequestration standpoint if it occurs. And with that, Madam Chair, I'm open to questions or anything we can do to help y'all.
Thank you. Now's the time to go ahead and press your buttons if you have any questions to ask. May I start off first with a question for you? And it's a matter of the transition that your agency has gone through, and also EPD. At one point in time, if I were a local government and I formed an alliance with several different areas and brought you a regional approach, I would mainly be going through EPD, but now that's not the process. And so if you could make sure that people really understand, if they could ask questions back at their home, a local government might be pitching its idea to EPD, but they really need to be pitching their idea to you and EPD. So I want to make sure y'all understand that, because a lot of your governments, in particular your local governments, don't understand that transition. Thank you.
Yeah, there was, as you're well aware, I want to say it was in 2008, maybe. I think it was, where a lot of EPD's duties and responsibilities shifted to GFA when it comes to I don't want to call it planning per se, because that's not our business. But it's really more of a coordination of regional and state water. But you know, EPD is still the regulatory body. But we assumed a lot of the responsibilities relative to working with communities on certain types of planning. And we were granted the power, if you will, that we could own reservoir projects, we could operate reservoir projects, we could do those things on a regional basis. So far, that has not come into play. But if somebody had one of those and they wanted GFA to partake in that project, then we have been authorized to do so. And so that's one of the big things that came our way, is that, you know, we can get into that area of providing or managing those types of projects, or even taking those projects from governments. If they want to get out of it, we could take them over and manage them. So that's one of the things that came up.
Then just as a follow-up, if I'm a legislator and have worked with 3 or 4 other legislators, there's a regional concept brewing. Then their city managers or county administrators, someone would contact you. Is that how it would work?
They would. I mean, you know, they would really get together and figure out whether they wanted us involved. You know, but then we could go in and work with them in any number of ways, whether it's fully funded via just municipally funded, whether it's GFA funded, or whether it's a P3. You know, we have the ability to go in and work as a lead local agency. As you know, we can be, you know, folks can ask us to do that, and we can take on that role, or we can be part of the equation. It really, you know, we have the flexibility to work with in any number of ways to assist communities.
And then I guess my last follow-up for the committee is for you to understand that these lists that we see each year when the awards of funding or grants or loans are made, that's not a predetermined set list. They can be the applicants to your agency, make a good case, and could perhaps get considered for a loan.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not a given that you know what you're going to do for the next 4 or 5 years, is what I'm trying to say.
No, we, you know, every year for the federal side, we have to produce what's called an intended use program, and we take applications for that, but that's, and we do needs surveys. I think the last needs survey from this past year showed about $2.5 billion in need. And so we produce all of that. That has a list of projects. And you have to be on that list to get federally funded. On the Georgia fund side, the state funded side, we have no such list. So we take them as they come, and you know, welcome all comers. We try to do what we can to assist all the communities in their work there, and we think that's our purpose, is to help communities get new projects. And if I can digress a little bit, we have been approached, I guess over the last year or so, as interest rates have dived in the marketplace. A lot of our communities come to us, and you saw our interest rates that we have. You know, they wanted to refinance. You know, can you refinance your loans? Not for many do hardship, but just like we would with our homes, got a better interest rate. And we've determined from a policy standpoint that really isn't our role. We don't believe we're here to circulate the dollars. We're here to promote new projects. And we're not in the business of competing with the private sector and the bond markets. Right? You know, we feel like that That's their purpose. If a community has the wherewithal and the ability to go out and get on the market and get a lower rate than what they have currently with our loans and pay those off, that's fine. We're happy to do it. Because we think we'll focus in on working with communities to develop new projects and not get into just recirculating dollars. And the other thing we've done to help communities is we've actually instituted really we have a 20-year AM, but now we have 15, 10, and 5 with reduced interest rates. So there are as you can tell with our programs where we reduce interest rates, whether a community's water first, whether it's a conservation project, any number of things. When we start reducing those rates, we have a floor of 0.5%. But so right now there are a lot of if somebody had a 10-year loan that was a conservation project, it'd be a 0.5% interest rate. But so we're all trying to develop new products and variations to our loan programs that'll help communities go forward.
And I know you're available. You've been available to our committee, and so to our members, as you absorb some of this and you have some questions, your number and everything's on the last
Yeah,
page.
my contact information, and we're always happy to talk with anybody about what we do.
Thank you. Now we'll go to committee questions, and we tried to give them in order in which they appeared. So identify yourself once I call on you. Number 29.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Down here, Director Chuck Williams, District 119, Athens, Clark, and Oconee. First, I just want to thank you for the flexibility that your agency showed. You had Hard Labor Creek, the Oconee-Walton joint project. You folks were very innovative and flexible in that financing package, and it means a lot to our area. So I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
I do have a question. Page 13 under the GLCP, one of your bullet points is the state income tax credit program for land donations.
Yes, sir.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe we passed some legislation last year that may have raised the bar for properties to qualify as environmentally sensitive properties, and I started immediately hearing from various conservation organizations and land trusts that we may be, in effect, if not killing the program, harming it significantly. Are we far enough into those changes to really know what the effects of those legislative changes raising that bar have been at this point?
Yeah, I mean we've had some activity in the program, and I don't know if it killed it. I think a lot of the changes that were instituted last year helped strengthen the program in a sense that removed any kind of even perception that things might be abused. So while it may have curtailed some of the activity, I think in the long run it really is beneficial for that program.
Thank you. Let's see. Next, number 22.
Mr. Clark.
Yes, sir.
I admire the fact that you're able to keep all the balls in the air because you have so many different categories and projects that you've got going, and we appreciate that.
Thank you.
What I wanted to ask you about, though, is your LUST program, the leaking underground storage tanks.
Mm-hmm.
Have we gone ahead and, as a state, inspected all of them?
Yes, sir.
We have.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of equipment are you using to determine that?
We have gone through over these last, I think that program went into effect, I want to say in the early mid-90s.
Mm-hmm.
But we have replaced multiple tanks. We've gotten all our tanks into compliance with EPD regulations. The ones that we have are monitored. We can check and make sure that our the amount that's going into the tank we're pumping out. We do all the math and make sure that everything's there, and all that's reported daily through phone lines and stuff to our systems. So we're able to monitor all the tanks and make sure that we're not having any leaks. And if we do have leaks, we know immediately what the problem is and go down and fix it.
Now, are those for our tanks or the commercial tanks that are out there?
Just only state of Georgia facilities.
Only state of Georgia facilities?
Yes, sir.
What are we doing in regards to the commercial tanks?
We're not doing anything in regards to those. EPD is regulating those, but
Okay.
we're not doing anything in that regard.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 10.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have two questions. One is about the page 6, the Weatherization Assistance Program.
Mm-hmm.
And it says 20 qualified service providers. So how does it work in terms of how do you get the service providers that go throughout the state to represent that program?
Well, the Department of Energy really prefers that we use the local community action agencies that service the state anyway, and so those are the agencies that we utilize and who we contract with, and so they are of course our sub-grantees in the federal jargon, and then those action agencies either hire folks in-house to do the work, have their own staffs, or they contract out. So they'll go out and hire contractors to perform those services. So they actually are our boots on the ground, the contractors that do the work, and we manage the funds for them.
Oh, in Atlanta, so example, Atlanta, Fulton County, who would be that entity?
Right now, I think Southeast Energy Alliance is the primary one.
And just in general, how has the program been effective in terms of spending all the money? Because I remember a little something about one agency not being able to spend all the money for the weatherization, specifically in Fulton.
Mm-hmm. Early on with the with stimulus, there was a big push, as you guys may well remember. Got to get the dollars out the door, and that's right. So and we had a very, very short time frame. Thankfully, the time frames for weatherization especially have been extended. So that program will now wind up in June, and we will expend every cent. And so it's worked out really well. We've I guess weatherized over the last 3 years over 15,000 homes, and just this past year over 5,000. So we've throughout the state. So it's been beneficial in that regard.
Okay, last question. You stated that the clean energy property tax credit would expire in 2014. Is there, Madam Chairman, as well, was there legislation in to renew it?
We haven't proposed any. I don't know if anything's coming or not. I don't
Look
know.
into.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Number 21.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Buddy Harden, District 148. I've got Chris, Wilcox, Pulaski, and part of Houston counties. One thing I do want to do, though, I want to thank you for your, basically, I guess what you call individualized financing for these communities. I did represent Vienna last year, and those, those small cities have particular needs in financing, and it looks like you did a really good job of helping them get past that initial cost and go forward. So thank you for doing that type of financing. One question I do have, though, relates to slide 7, your energy performance contracting provides a new financing option. Do you have staff that's working on that, or is that something you contract out to individual companies that may be doing that type of thing?
Well, we have a staff that our role in energy performance contracting is we pre-qualified 17 eligible what we call ESCOs, or energy performance contractors, and so we developed that pre-qualification process and then pre-qualified these 17 firms. We also developed what I call the template documents, the requests for proposals, the contracts for the various phases, and we developed a manual that state agencies can use when they go forward. So really, when it comes to that standpoint, and then we advise and work with state agencies on, excuse me, how to secure the services of an energy performance contractor. We work with them on the measurement and verification aspects, make sure they're getting what they bargained for. And then we work with them to make sure that the dollars, and we work with GSFIC to make sure that the dollars that are basically, I guess, encumbered or committed are actually the state, since it is a form of debt. We make sure that GSFIC approves what that yearly total will be, and then that's all taken into account when the rating agencies look at everything. All that goes into play. But so we don't manage the contracts per se. Each agency will manage their own contract, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. And the reason I asked the question, I firmly believe that is the one place that we can get the best energy savings. But we've got to drill down even to, and as you list on your next slide, to homes and small businesses, because I think we don't have a lot of understanding of how to save energy, particularly at the home level. So I'd like to see that program expanded somehow to reach more people, because I think that's a great place to save energy.
And one of the things that, even, I hate to keep bringing it up, but as part of stimulus, we put some dollars into some revolving loan funds for utilities, and they were able to go through and actually help folks through on-bill financing, put in some energy efficiency measures, and it's just, they pay it off on their bill. So there are things that are being done in that standpoint. I think Georgia Cities Foundation, Oglethorpe Power, there are quite a few that have that ability, and also from a small business standpoint, I think the convenience stores did the same type of thing. So there are some minor programs that are in play. So they could be, I'm sure they would love to do some more.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 16.
Thank you, Kevin Tanner, District 9. There's a lot of money that's flowed through GFO over the last few years through stimulus that you talked about, specifically for grants that went to local communities and some state agencies to do retrofitting of lights and other energy efficient type mechanisms. Through your follow-up and through their reporting they're required to do, how's that working? Are they seeing the savings they had predicted? Can you talk about that just a second?
Yeah, a little bit. On the state facility side, I think what we noticed when we got our measurement verification data for this past year was an overall 5% reduction in energy costs throughout the state for those programs, and there was a total of $10 million in avoided costs. So those programs, that I think we'll see and reap the benefits of that going forward. On the EECBG side, of the Energy Efficiency Community Block Grant Program, sorry about the acronyms, we have a very similar data. I think it was in that same range of 5-6% savings on energy.
Is that generally what they had expected to see? So
Yeah.
it's coming
So a
in.
little bit less than what was originally projected, but it's in the same ballpark. They were looking at 7+.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it appears you've answered all the questions until the questions pop up afterwards, and so I know you'll stay around for just a little bit in case
Would love
people
to.
have.
Thank you so
some
much. It's always a
Thank
pleasure.
you. It's like going through a college math course, but thank you very much.
Yeah, you said there'd be no math.
Right.